It's been a good ride. But after nearly 3 years and 131 episodes, Dragon Ball Super came to a close. And I wanted to share my thoughts on the finale because, as a longtime Dragon Ball fan, I was watching the show from the very first episode, right when it got fan-subbed. And initially, I remember with those first 26 episodes, that first half a year, being so disappointed in the show and how it was retelling the plots of the movies and just padding out everything with so much filler and fluff, not to mention how atrocious the artwork and animation could be at times, which has been very well documented how Super's production was just not in a good place. It was not done properly from the beginning, set up in a way that would allow the staff to have the time they needed to work on the episodes and have them polished to an acceptable level. That's how we got episodes like number 5, where there was some really bad art and some really messy animation that really put a huge negative stigma on the show. People looked at the series and was like, oh man, what is Toei doing? Toei is such a bad studio, when really there are so many talented animators and staff working at Toei who can put out really great work, and I think we have seen that in these past 2 arcs of Super, that as Super has gotten its production schedule back together, not perfect, but at least much healthier than it was at the start when it was a nightmare, that they've been able to put out some really great work and some really impressive stuff. But of course, especially for outsiders who don't watch Dragon Ball Super or a lot of Toei shows, that stigma is still there, and it's really unfortunate. But we come now to Dragon Ball Super episode 131, the finale. And when all is said and done, they really delivered on this finale. They made sure it looked as great as it possibly could. This is by far the best looking episode of Super. Not only that, it is definitely the best storyboarded. Regardless of what you might think of Tadayoshi Yamamuro, and there's a lot to complain about him in how overly detailed and stiff his designs are, and how they didn't translate to animation, and in general how he's handled the franchise in terms of how he's handled animation and the boarding on the parts he's worked on. Resurrection F is a particular example where people go and criticize the very basic boarding in that film and how things don't really pop as they should. But here, with the finale, I think this was a nice way for him to go out on. We know that he's being replaced by Ishitani for the movie, perhaps even the rest of the franchise from here on out. So this was basically Yamamuro's swan song for Dragon Ball. Who knows what involvement he'll have in the franchise in the future. I wonder whether he is being forcibly retired or he's just moving on to other things. But it's always been a big criticism of Yamamuro that he is a small fish in a big pond who refuses to evolve his style and just has stagnated, and that has caused Dragon Ball to stagnate artistically as well. But I think that with episode 131, Yamamuro's designs have never looked better in motion, because the animation, really the artwork here is just so on point and just looks so sharp and crisp and really impressive. There's just so many great moments where you're looking at these characters and they are so expressive, and because they are also so detailed, that just adds another layer of impact when they are speaking and they have full animation. They really pulled out all the stops for this finale. They didn't skimp. I mean, there is obviously some limited moments here and there, but in general, especially with the fight in the first half, they went all out to make sure everything looked as crisp and animated as possible. This is perhaps even stronger than last week's episode 130, in terms of how powerful a lot of the scenes looked and how polished it looked. I really appreciated that. I mean, especially when you look at facial expressions. When Frieza is asking Goku if he remembers the promise, or in general, Goku's facial expressions in the episode when he pops in to assist 17 and Frieza in pushing back Jiren's attack, and that tired look he has on his face. Or later when 18 is criticizing Goku of having influenced 17's personality, and Goku is giving this wah expression. Like, the facial expressions in this episode really felt like Dragon Ball. They felt like Toriyama-esque expressions, and I really appreciated that. I think there was a happy medium they found between the Yamamura designs and Toriyama designs. So I think this was a good swan song for this look of Dragon Ball, assuming we aren't going to return to it in the future. I think that Shitani's look, as demonstrated in the trailer for the Dragon Ball Super movie, is how they're going to be going in the future. And I'm excited for that, because they are very crisp, animation-friendly designs, and as we've seen with Pokemon Sun and Moon, that's definitely the way to go to get some really expressive, fun animation. And when it comes to episode 131, I will definitely say that there was a lot of great action animation. I definitely slowed down a lot of the parts of the fight with Jiren, especially when Goku and Frieza were tag teaming and fighting against Jiren, and there were so many really awesome camera movements and dynamic angles. Like when Goku is pushing Frieza towards 17, and we have like that squash and stretch of like Frieza like preparing to jump out from Goku's hand to go and tackle Jiren. Oh, that is really cool stuff there. In general, I really loved how that fight was animated and how it looked, and the pacing and the boarding of the entire project. Anime AJ, if you follow him on Twitter, he's my favorite Dragon Ball guy, because he really breaks down the production of the series and all the animators and what they do, and I've learned so much from watching him. He remarked on this episode that the boarding really paid attention to the narrative and enhanced it, and I definitely agree with him there, because so much of what makes this episode work and every moment, not just the fight, feel special, is the compositions of the board and what they say about the scene, like the emotion they evoke in the scene. For even simple things or innocuous things, like every frame every board I felt said something and conveyed the emotion it needed to. Like, even in some less polished parts of this episode, because there were a few of those, like when Jiren is in the stands and the other U11 members are crowding over him and they're giving their thanks to him. Like, even then, there's just such great attention to detail and composition and what emotion that would evoke. So I really appreciated that. There were a lot of standout, really cool images from this episode, so I took a lot of screenshots of them because, like, there were so many standout visual moments. In general, I really enjoyed how this final fight played out, because one thing I've always wanted to see more of in Dragon Ball is true teamwork in fights, especially in the final battle. Not that it boils down to a one-on-one, but it takes a group effort to defeat an enemy. And I feel like we haven't had that directly since the fight with Vegeta in the Saiyan arc. Because while we have had group efforts to defeat an enemy in other arcs, like in the Buu arc, it definitely was a group effort to get the energy for the spirit bomb, but at the end of the day, the spirit bomb was thrown by Goku, and it was a beam struggle between Goku and Kid Buu. So a lot of Dragon Ball arcs end between Goku fighting the enemy of the arc, with the exception of the Cell arc, of course, where Gohan fought Cell, but it's the same difference, really. But here, it's a 3 versus 1 fight. Goku, 17, and Frieza have to team up and coordinate themselves in order to defeat Jiren. And I really appreciate that, because we just don't see that happen much in Dragon Ball these days. This fight was so brutal and so emotionally exhausting and draining on all the characters involved that everyone was pushed to their limits and really tired themselves out. And you really feel that exhaustion from everyone involved in this final episode. And I like that even Jiren is so exhausted and he's about to give up at the middle of the episode, but right before he does, Toppo encourages him, and this is a really cool moment because we don't see this on the antagonist side so often, where a fellow character on the antagonist side is encouraging them to stand up and continuing fighting. And Jiren isn't a bad guy, like, he is a hero in his own universe. And it's really cool to see that connection he has with Toppo. That Toppo, there's been a lot of attention paid to how Toppo is reacting to Jiren's backstory and what he's seeing in his fight with Goku. And Toppo really cares about Jiren. He considers Jiren his friend, like he's said as much about him before, even though Jiren himself doesn't think of any of the Pride Troopers as his friends. He's really in for it all on himself, like he's a lone wolf. So he's treated them so coldly during this episode, and he called Toppo basically a failure, a disappointment for how he lost giving up his ideals. But here, I really appreciated Toppo encouraging Vegeta. No, I really appreciated Toppo encouraging Jiren like this, and that being what allows Jiren to reawaken some of his power and go back into the fight rejuvenated and motivated to win. And it made the fight more desperate on our hero side for the U7 characters, which was also appreciated. Like, 17 and Frieza managed to have Jiren on the ropes, but once Jiren is rejuvenated, like, they're on the losing edge. They can barely hold back Jiren's attack. Frieza lets go of his Golden Frieza form because he can't maintain it, and it takes Goku to return to the fight, and all three of them working together in order to take down Jiren. And what I love is how they emphasize is that it's the trust between the members on the U7 team that really wins the day, because none of these characters have a really strong connection with each other, or at least they don't have a strong friendship with each other. But what they do have is respect. Even though Frieza hates Goku, he respects Goku, and he can trust Goku in this fight. And Goku feels the same way about Frieza. So I absolutely love that it takes Goku and Frieza teaming up together to take down Jiren and wring him out. That they both have to latch onto Jiren and force him out of the ring together. And that, to me, was just so satisfying. Frieza, when he was announced to be returning in this arc, I was disappointed. One, because it meant Buu is getting booted out, and I love Buu. Majin Buu is one of my favorite characters. But over the course of this arc, I've really come to appreciate what they've been doing with Frieza. He is so fun, and he added such a great dynamic to the tournament as being a duplicitous member of Team Universe 7, someone they couldn't trust, but at the same time, he couldn't outright betray them until the very end, if he even had that chance. So he had to work for the same common goal. Like, he can't let the universe be erased either. So he had to work alongside Team Universe 7. And he was put into situations where he's had to team up to fight opponents. For the most part, in the tournament, Frieza was kind of off on his own, just observing from the sidelines. But he chipped in every now and again to help out members of Universe 7. He helped Gohan in the fight with Janice. He ended up giving energy to Goku after he exhausted himself in his first battle with Jiren. He participated in the battle with Anilaza, and from there, he teamed up with Gohan against Dispo, and then with 17 against Toppo, and then now he teamed up with Goku and 17 in the fight with Jiren. Like, he's become a team player, whether he wanted to or not, mainly because of circumstances, and he had no choice, but at the same time, I feel that through these battles, he's developed a deeper respect for the members of the U7 team. Especially, a surprising connection I found was between Frieza and 17. There's this great moment when they think they have Jiren on the ropes, and Frieza is telling 17, it's kind of risky for you to go at him like that and explode yourself in that barrier with Jiren. And 17 was like, I knew I could take that chance because I knew that with you around, you could finish the job, and I trusted you. And Frieza was like, you honor me with your trust. And it's a moment where he gives like a pause, he gives a look to 17, like he's taken aback. He's never had this before, where someone has counted on him as part of a team to win the day. Frieza's always considered himself at the top, like, he is always out for number one. There's no one else on his level. He doesn't respect anyone else. No one is his peer. But here, I feel in the Universe Survival arc, he has come to begrudgingly respect that Goku, Vegeta, and 17, and Gohan, and a lot of the members of the U7 team are his peers and worthy of respect. And that's really interesting to see from Frieza. Honestly, I think that might have been one of my favorite parts of this episode, is how it handles Frieza's character and what it sets up for him. Because, for one thing, again, I love how it is Goku and Frieza, two notorious enemies. Like, the Goku-Frieza relationship is one of the most memorable villain-hero relationships in Dragon Ball. Frieza is the most iconic villain in the franchise. So to see both of them team up together to take out Jiren, that it takes both of them together to take out Jiren, really feels meaningful and special. It feels like a big thing. But even more than that, when Frieza is saying that when he's asking Goku if he remembers his promise, when he's telling Goku, you don't need to tank me, I don't want your things, when he's scoffing at everyone having their happy ending and saying, you know what, return me to hell, I don't want to have to see this, your happiness is hell for me. Like, Frieza don't protest too much. I think that Frieza, I don't think he's ever going to become a good guy. I hope he never becomes an outright good guy. But right now, Frieza's been positioned in the same role that Piccolo was at the end of the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai. He's currently an anti-villain, I feel. Perhaps leaning towards anti-hero. I feel uncomfortable even saying that, because I don't really want Frieza to ever become a hero. But I think that the days of Frieza going after Goku and company, the days of Frieza being an outright villain, are over. I think now Frieza is going to have a little more nuance and complexity to him in terms of his relationship with Goku, Vegeta, and the rest of the U7 crew. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where that lies. I think that with Beerus having a renewed respect for Frieza and letting Whis bring him back to life, I think that's a big thing. I think that a possible future for Frieza in this franchise is that he might be chosen to become the next God of Destruction after Beerus. Because we've seen that Frieza is capable of handling Hakaishin energy, so he is suited for it. He can already handle Hakaishin energy. And I think that Frieza's general disposition, his love of destroying things, makes him a suitable candidate for the God of Destruction position. Because Beerus himself is not a good guy. He destroys planets on a whim if they don't serve food he likes. So Frieza could easily fit into that role, because you don't need to be a good guy to be a God of Destruction. You just need to be capable of destroying things and being able to get the job done. And Frieza, if nothing else, has a very businessman-like personality. So he would probably take the job very seriously and do it well. Honestly, might even do it better than Beerus. And I feel that Frieza has earned some humility through this fight in the Tournament of Power. You know, even at the end, he's mocking Jiren, saying, "Oh, where's all the fight in you now? Where's your poker face? You can't be stoic anymore?" I think even though Frieza is still talking trash, we've seen in his interactions with U7 crew that, you know, he has a begrudging respect. He knows that he can't really take out these guys alone. So, to me, when Frieza's saying, "I won't give up my evil ways," to me that's a lot like what Piccolo does at the end of the Tenkaichi Budokai after the fight with Goku. Like, Goku gives a senzu to Piccolo. Piccolo's like, "We're not done yet. I will return and beat you." You know, Piccolo's still pretending that, you know, he's a bad guy and he's gonna kill Goku the next time they fight. I mean, he does kill Goku the next time, though they end up, you know, fighting together. So it's not the victory he had imagined. But I think Frieza's really in that kind of role now. And we know that Frieza's going to be in the movie, and I don't think that Frieza's going to be the enemy of the movie. I think the enemy is going to be the Saiyan Yamoshi. It's been speculated, the original Super Saiyan. He might be the villain of the film. Frieza's going to be involved. We know that. I think that movie is going to be really telling if the direction they take Frieza in is going to be in that Piccolo kind of role, except unlike with Piccolo, I don't think that he'll ever grow out of his villainous disposition. I don't think he'll ever soften to the point where you'll see Dad Frieza like you see Dad Piccolo. If anything, I think that his behavior will be more like, and this is probably a more accurate comparison, Vegeta as he was for most of Dragon Ball Z. Because Vegeta was never a good guy until the end of Dragon Ball Z. Sure, he allied with the characters on Namek and in the Android Saga and the Buu Saga, but Vegeta was always selfish and out for himself and perfectly willing to kill innocent people in order to get what he wanted. And it was only in the Buu Saga, after he reconciled the fact that he does love his family, he does care about the Earth, and he fights for the Earth and to protect the Earth, that he, and more importantly, that he comes to realize his limitations and that Goku is simply better than him as a person and as a fighter, that he becomes a good person. Like, that character arc for Vegeta lasted through the entirety of Dragon Ball Z. Unlike Vegeta, I don't think that Frieza's ever going to become a hero like Vegeta has become in Dragon Ball Super. But I think Frieza is going to be in that role Vegeta was. He's still going to be a villainous character, but he'll be fighting alongside Goku and company instead of against them. He might have his machinations to betray them at certain points and try and throw them under the bus, but overall, I don't think Frieza is ever going to directly try and attack Goku and company again. I think those days are done. And to me, I hope that is the case, because quite frankly, they've been bringing Frieza back for 20 plus years. They can't let this character die. It's not just Dragon Ball Super that brought him back. It's not just Resurrection F. you think back to the franchise and its history, and they keep bringing Frieza back in his own arc. There's so many false deaths for him. He comes back at the beginning of the Android arc, and let's not talk about all the filler appearances he has in Dragon Ball Z. Like, he's a go-to for filler appearances. Like, Goku fights him in Hell, and then we have cutaways to him in Hell. He's in Resurrection F. They make so many Frieza clones, which is basically the same thing as bringing Frieza back. Cooler is basically just Frieza with another skin and a different gimmick. And, of course, we had Frost in Universe 6 and Super. But then we have all these other movie appearances. In general, they just keep bringing Frieza back, you know? They can't let that character die. And it makes sense why. Because he's so memorable and iconic. He was a big deal. But quite frankly, I think that we should move past the point of bringing Frieza back, then defeating him again, and then he gets brought back again. Let's stop that cycle. Let's just keep Frieza alive this time. You know, that's great. I'm happy that Frieza was brought back and is alive, because that means that, at least for now, we won't have to kill him off again and bring him back again. Because you know that they'll just keep doing that forever and ever. This franchise is never going to end, and as long as the franchise never ends, they're not going to stop bringing Frieza back because Frieza's too good a character for them not to use. They can't get over him. So I think it's time for Frieza to have a new role in this series. And I think that Dragon Ball Super Episode 131 sets up some interesting things for him. I definitely think that his dynamic with the Universe 7 characters has changed in a way that will allow the character to evolve past what he's been prior to this arc, and I'm looking forward to that. And I'm actually really excited for that, because Frieza has definitely elevated as a character in my mind because of Dragon Ball Super, honestly. I have really enjoyed him in all his comeback appearances in Resurrection F and in this arc, and even in how they used him in other stuff like Dragon Ball FighterZ. I've just enjoyed his personality so much more. I've had like a renaissance of respect for Frieza as a character. So I really do want to see more of him. I know so many people are tired of him, but I think what will make him less tiring is if they find a different role for him, and it's not like the same kind of sticks that they do with him in terms of using him as a villain. Let's not have him be an outright villain anymore. Let's have him be an anti-villain or anti-hero. Let's have him become the next God of Destruction, or at least become a God of Destruction in training. Let's have some new things with Frieza. And I think that they will go in that route. I think that they realize Frieza is too usable a character and too valuable a character to waste by killing him off again. So, kudos to them for making the decision to keep him alive. I'm definitely thankful for that. In terms of another character, besides Frieza, that I really loved and appreciated in this arc, that was Android 17 for sure. Like, Android 17, he ended up being the MVP of the tournament, both in the show and outside the show in the fandom. Because this character, Android 17, I know a lot of people liked him in Dragon Ball Z, but personally I didn't find him that interesting in Z. I mean, he was certainly fun as a character. He was very mature and cocky, and he had a lot of fun filler scenes, for sure, in the anime, where he stole cars, and he, at 18, had this fun, bickering personality. They had this good dynamic, like siblings, teenage siblings, that I really appreciated. But, 17 was not a particularly deep character, or at least he didn't have as much nuances as 18 and 16 had that made them more interesting than him. Like, I was not disappointed that we did not get more 17 back in Dragon Ball Z. But here in Dragon Ball Super, I really like what they've done with him, because they took what 17 was. They took his personality, but they've matured him. And instead of being cocky and impulsive and prone to getting into fights without thinking through things and letting his guard down, 17 is perhaps one of the most tactical and responsible fighters in the Universe 7 crew. Especially in the tournament, he's very straightforward and matter-of-fact in terms of settling fights. There is, of course, that incredibly memorable moment where he attacked Brienne and her posse while they were transforming, and everyone told him, hey, man, just let them transform. But 17 does not waste any time as a fighter. But at the same time, we see the glimpses of how he used to be, that he still had that childish side to him. Like when he and 18 were pronouncing themselves as warriors of Universe 7 in the fight with those last three members of Universe 2. You know, that fun dynamic. Like, he still has a fun, playful side to him, but he knows the stakes, he knows the job he has to do, and he's capable of making the responsible decision in a fight. Like, he makes a very strategic ploy to pretend that he's been killed in the Tournament of Power so that at the very end he could come in a pinch to help out in the fight. I think that was a very clever move. I think they should have pronounced that was strategy, but they did imply that was his strategy in, like, his lines in the previous episode of 130. And in general, like, 17 is such a good team player with everyone he's fought alongside. He's great individually as well, but we've seen throughout this entire tournament how 17 has really been a great assist for other characters, such as in the fight with Brienne, he helped 18 during that. Then later, in the fight with Anilaza, he recognizes Anilaza's weakness and manages to destroy that in order to help the rest of the team defeat him. And of course, we have the fights with Topo, where he's a team player and he's rescuing his teammates, especially Frieza. We have the fight with Jiren, of course, where he's also rescuing his teammates. Like, he knows what the objective is, he knows what he's capable of, and he does everything in his power to win the day. Like, he doesn't waste any time, and I really respect that about him. Like, that he's so on guard and so on point as a fighter. Like, we've seen a lot of the other U7 characters get ringed out because they don't know their limits, they get into situations over their head, or they make mistakes. A lot of the U7 fighters get ringed out because they messed up. Krillin left his guard down, and Frost was able to ring him out. Tenshinhan let his guard down in the fight with Hermilla, and so he had to do the double suicide thing, even though, you know, he honestly was winning that fight. He had Hermilla on the ropes. If he hadn't let his guard down, it should have not have resulted in his elimination, but that's unfortunate. We have, of course, Piccolo getting ringed out by one of the U4 invisible people, the bug guy, just because he underestimated what the bug guy was capable of, or didn't realize he wasn't just another invisible guy. And we had Gohan, like, have to do that last-ditch effort to take out Dispo because it wasn't really any fault of Gohan's. It was like Frieza ultimately couldn't keep up his attack, so Gohan had to make that last-minute decision. So good on Gohan for making that last-minute decision. But again, if Gohan had paid more attention to what his partner's limits were, he wouldn't have had to make that choice in the first place. But 17 is very aware of not only what his limits are, but the limits of the people he's working alongside. So he knows how to bring out the best of his partners in fights, and also how to really play the supporting role in order to help the team effort and help his partners do what they need to do, as we've seen in the fights with Brienne, with Dispo, with Topo, and with Jiren. And I really respect that about 17. I really love that about 17. He's just really, really elevated as one of my favorite Dragon Ball characters now for his showing in the Tournament of Power, and just such a cool, smart guy he really is. I think that has been Dragon Ball Super's greatest strength, is actually in how it's taken secondary characters and developed them. I don't think that it's really done anything new with Goku and Vegeta. I think that, honestly, they repeat the same beats that they have with Goku and Vegeta. And with Vegeta, I have mixed feelings about what they do with him, because while I like that Vegeta gets a lot of focus in Super, it does feel kind of a shame that we have at the end of Dragon Ball Z with Vegeta accepting his limits and then Goku is just stronger than him. And now in Super, he is back to being toe-to-toe with Goku as a rival. So it's a little unfortunate that character progression, that ending for him in Dragon Ball Z has kind of been rewritten to continue the rivalry and to continue to keep Vegeta relevant. But it's much better than just having this be the Goku show. So I can dig that. Ultimately, I think that how they've handled other characters has just been the strongest aspect of it. Not every character, because for most of the series, it has been the Goku and Vegeta show, and no one else has really gotten time to shine. But there have been some characters, and that's why I know a lot of people have had problems with the pacing of the Tournament of Power and decisions they made in the Tournament of Power. But this is definitely my favorite arc in Super for how it's used characters. Because even though I was disappointed in how certain characters were eliminated, Krillin and Tenshinhan especially, I can at least appreciate that Dragon Ball Super gave them stuff to do that felt meaningful and felt like they actually contributed to the cause of the narrative, as opposed to how they had been treated in the Buu saga, or with a lot of them even before that. Now, granted, you can pick semantics and say, oh, Krillin just fought a bunch of random guys from Universe 4, they weren't that important, but it's not so much how significant those antagonists were that matters to me. It's how they use the character in their spotlight episodes and gave them some respect. And Krillin's probably not the strongest example in that one episode, but in terms of the overall grand picture of Super, I think Super really did Krillin justice, because for the entire series we have Krillin kind of debating what he wants to do, how he wants to use his power to help people, and he decides to retire as a martial artist because he can't keep up with Goku anymore, and just continue to do good as a policeman. But then we have great moments where Krillin and Goku are training together, and he kind of rekindles his passion for martial arts, and he shows that he's still evolving as a fighter, that he has his insecurities for sure. Like we see in the Resurrection F arc, there was an episode that focused on Krillin being afraid to fight Frieza goons because he wasn't confident in his abilities anymore. And then again, we have the 2 episodes before the Tournament of Power started, where Goku and Krillin are training together, where Krillin is, he has this emotional speech where he's telling Goku when he's being overwhelmed by being confronted by all the villains past in that forest, and he's screaming at Goku that he can't handle this, he's not like Goku, he's afraid, he has vulnerabilities, he's just not confident like him. But at the end of the day, Krillin kind of rekindles his fighting spirit and his confidence in himself, and that carries through to the Tournament of Power. I feel that people look at those in-between episodes of Dragon Ball Super and dismiss them as filler, but honestly, I think a lot of those pre-tournament episodes especially were great character-building episodes, like the 2-parter with Hit and that 2-parter with Krillin, and even that 2-parter with Gohan. So I think Krillin actually benefited a lot in the narrative, and I think a great kind of resolution for that was during the early stage of the final fight with Jiren, where Goku is using a tactic to get himself back in the ring that Krillin used earlier in his mock fight with Goku in the recruitment episodes. And Krillin has this moment, hey, Goku is using that attack I used. He's using that technique. And it's just this great understated moment of that really emphasizes how Goku and Krillin are still rivals and still friends that really inspire the best in each other, and they still are learning from each other and improving because of each other. Even though Goku is so much stronger than Krillin, Goku still has things he can learn from Krillin, and Krillin gets really emotional reflecting on that, and I got emotional, at that moment too, because it's like a great moment to say, hey, these characters, they're not always the strongest, but they still have an impact on the story. They still mean a lot. And that was a huge thing that they tied back into the climax of this fight, which, again, I want to kind of steer back into this episode, the finale, because I'm kind of talking about Super as a whole, and I want to save that discussion for a later date, because I definitely have plans to talk about Super as a whole later. But to get back into the finale and the thematics of this finale, I really love how they establish this contrast between Goku and Jiren. That Goku gets stronger because he has friends who inspire him to get better, and friends he fights to protect. And Jiren has become strong just as an individual fighting for himself. But in this moment, at the end of the day, Jiren gets strength from his friend. He gets strength from Toppo. Toppo encouraging him to stand up gives Jiren his second wind and allows him to put up another fight again. And he might have been able to win if it didn't take the efforts of Goku and Frieza and 17 working together to take him out. So I really appreciated what they did with Jiren in this final episode. I wish they had treated him more consistently from the beginning. I really wish they had emphasized that this was the contrast between Goku and Jiren. This was going to be the real thematic, emotional conflict between them. I wish they had established that earlier on, because earlier in this arc, all we've seen with Jiren has been him being silent and stoic, and that's all he was. And that's fine that he's this immovable force in nature. If that was what they wanted to go for, that would have been okay. He wouldn't have been that interesting, but as an enemy in this tournament, it would have been whatever. And there was definitely a lot of backlash as they moved away from that, and Jiren, started adopting this personality, that he was selfish, that he was only in this tournament for himself. He didn't consider the rest of the Pride Troopers really his friends or teammates. He always saw himself as a lone wolf. And he's clinging to the past, and because of that, he couldn't form new connections with anyone. Because he had friends, he had people he cared about in the past, he lost them, and he decided, no more. I'm on my own from now. I'm just going to be stronger for myself, not for the sake of others. And I really wish they had established that from the beginning and kept Jiren's character consistent because of that, but I really appreciate that he evolved his character beyond just being a stoic badass, because that made Jiren so much more interesting. And the place that they leave Jiren in this final episode, with Toppo calling Jiren out and saying, when did you become so weak and pathetic, dude? Didn't you feel that during that final fight, when I was calling out to you, didn't you feel that a connection formed between us for the first time then? I really like that moment between Jiren and Toppo, and how they're saying, next time, we will defeat them together. We'll get stronger together. I really like how they left it off with Jiren there. Because, again, another thing I really like about this final fight is that because it takes the group effort of everyone to defeat Jiren, it means that Jiren can come back and still have credibility as a fighter. And I really like that, because even though Goku in Mastered Ultra Instinct mode was able to defeat Jiren, at the end of the day, it was still a hard-won battle. And Jiren can always get stronger. And, Ultra Instinct is not just a Saiyan exclusive thing. Jiren could get Ultra Instinct. So I like that we're having new characters that can continue to rival Goku and push each other forward. I'm hoping Hit will remain the same way too. Like, Hit got defeated by Jiren when Jiren wasn't even at full power. So I'm hoping that when Hit returns to the story, and we know that Hit will because he's popular too, I hope that Hit will also continue to improve and become a stronger fighter to rival Goku and Jiren and Vegeta. And Toppo. Like, Toppo, I think, will also continue to be relevant and get stronger. I think all of the three main Pride Troopers will, when they reappear in the story, be equally prominent again. I'm kind of hoping for the rest of the Pride Troopers to get stuff too. I mean, at least Kazural. I think Kazural was the character I was most disappointed that was eliminated so early on from the U11 team because he had so much build-up in the recruitment episodes, but it is what it is. In the end, I'm just really glad that we got such strong new characters out of this tournament. We got Jiren and Toppo. We got Ribrianne and her posse. We've got the Universe 4 characters. I mean, the Universe 4 team isn't that interesting. Like, Katella is an interesting guy. I like Gowasu, and I hope that we see more of Ramushi from Universe 10. In general, a lot of characters from the other universes made impressions on me. Like, I would not mind seeing most of these guys again because they were pretty cool. They were not necessarily complex characters, most of them, but they all had something going for them, I felt. At least most of the fighters did. The Universe 6 characters, we are definitely going to see again. I think everyone has speculated that the movie will heavily feature them, considering, we'll have a Saiyan antagonist. Why not also have the Saiyan homeworld finally be shown? Let's go to Planet Sadla in Universe 6. Have Vegeta finally meet the king of Planet Sadla. Let's have more of Kaba, Kale, and Khalifa. At the end of the episode, they're saying, hey, Kaba, let's train and become Super Saiyans 3s. And I definitely think they will achieve Super Saiyans 3. Maybe Kefla, the fused form of Kale and Caulifla, will be how they are able to do Super Saiyans 3, and they won't be able to do it individually yet. I can definitely see that happening, as a parallel to Gotenks, but I guess we'll see. I'm definitely excited to see those characters again. I want to see Hit again. And Frost has been resurrected, I noticed. It's a panning shot, and Frost is at the far left, so we don't see him for too long, and it's not made a note of. But it looks like Frost was brought back to life, and I wanted to definitely state that, because when I was listening to Tekking 101's review earlier, I didn't listen to the full review, but I kind of skipped around to his final thoughts, and he was saying, oh, did Frost get revived? And he put up a picture of the Universe 6 team, and Frost wasn't in that shot, but in the panning shot as a whole, you saw on the far left that Frost had also been brought back to life. It just went really quick, and his back was turned, so maybe not a lot of people noticed that, but yeah, Frost is back, and that'll be interesting in how they use him. Again, that's another character that I hope they find something different to do with him than just have him be how he has been as a duplicitous ally. Having him be a selfish kind of anti-villain, anti-hero kind of character is still fine. But I don't want it to be another Frieza situation where they keep bringing him back to defeat him. Because Frost, for one thing, is so much weaker than Frieza. He has the potential to get stronger, but at the same time, he's also a weaker character. I think he works best when playing off against other characters, and when he's being a heel, like he was in the Universe 7, in this tournament towards Universe 7, how he went after Master Roshi, and how he thought that he was scheming alongside Frieza when Frieza was just screwing with him, which, the manga is handled so much better than the anime. I'm more disappointed with the manga in terms of recent chapters. With the recent chapter where Krillin and Tenshin are eliminated without much fanfare, and that was disappointing. But in terms of the Frieza Frost subplot in the manga, that was so much better in how it was executed, because Frieza's plan actually made sense, and how he manipulated Frost actually had a point, instead of being kind of a waste of time, kind of Frieza just screwing around in the anime. But, yeah, Frost being back also will be interesting in terms of how he and Frieza might interact if they come across each other in the future. Who knows if Frost is going to be in the new movie? We know Frieza will, we don't know about Frost, but, if we're going to go to Universe 6 in that movie, there's a good chance we'll see him. And then I guess the only other Universe 6 character that I'm also happy was revived and excited to see again was Vegeta, because he's just an adorable character, and I wanted to see him get over his despair that he goes into when people call him names. That'll be nice if they do that. I want actually character development for Vegeta. Keep him around. Botomo, the Universe 6, the Namekians, Universe 6 and Namekians, actually, they could do more with those guys. I would like to see that, actually, but definitely Vegeta, as far as the only non-Saiyan and Frost character and hit character in that team I want more of. But this has been kind of rambly. I kind of lost the point of what I wanted. I guess to go back to Android 17 again, I really like that, we know that the final wish was going to be to revive all the universes, right? Like, I don't know who was under the delusion that the ending was not going to be that. I mean, they spent so much time building up these characters and developing these characters, they weren't just going to leave them be. So I really appreciated that what they did do is that they didn't have Goku outright win. They didn't have Frieza outright win. But they had 17 win, a character that really surprised everyone in this entire tournament because no one expected this much out of him. But at the end of the day, he really proved himself to be one of the best fighters on the team and one of the best team players. So I definitely think he earned that spot of doing the wish, of making the wish. And it felt satisfying coming from him. I mean, 17's wish was pretty selfish to begin with, which fit in line to what his personality was in Z, that he was this selfish character. Now, of course, in Super, his wish was also to take his family on the cruise, so it was more selfish in the vein, he's thinking about his family, but not other people. But here, he makes the wish to bring back all the universes, and, he isn't expecting that he'll be compensated to still get that cruise. Obviously, Bulma does pay for it, because she is just nice like that. I mean, she promised to compensate everyone on the team, but 17 wasn't there for that discussion. So he had no idea that he would still get that cruise. So I really like that moment of selflessness from 17. That is a really profound character growth from him. I think that really, re-emphasizes and sells that development. Hey, here's this guy who in Dragon Ball Z was stealing cars, was acting petty, was cocky, and just in general not very responsible in how he handled himself in fights and stuff, but he learned from that, and he learned to become a better person, more considerate of others, and he's not a delinquent anymore. Just like how 18 has matured being a mother, and how that has made her a more responsible person, 17 has also matured as a person, from being a family man, from being a wildlife protector, and he has grown out of that selfishness he had, and I really respect that. I mean, 17 might be one of the least selfish characters in the series in terms of what he wants. Or at least that's unfair to say because Goku used to be selfless. That was how he was in Dragon Ball as a kid, but as he became an adult, he became more selfish. It really was in the Namek arc, probably, or really the tail end of the Saiyan arc, where he's asking Krillin to spare Vegeta just so he can fight him again. That's when we see selfish Goku starting popping up. And before that, Goku, actually that was the distinguishing feature of Goku, was that he was selfless, and then all the other people around him were selfish, and they wanted to make selfish choices on the Dragon Balls. But Goku was just, peace-loving. He didn't really want anything. He was just happy to go on an adventure. And they really changed that. So, that's kind of an unfortunate evolution of Goku's character, that he has become less selfless as time has gone on. But I'm glad that, 17 has kind of stepped into that role as a moral center for the team. Who would have thought that Android 17 would be the most moral, most responsible person on the Universe 17? You'd think that would have been Gohan, but it was 17. I mean, Gohan probably would have also done the same if he had won, but I think that they realized, hey, we're bringing back this character, let's do the most we can do with him. And so they did the most they could do with him, and I'm glad that they did. Android 17 was really cool in this arc, and I think he'll be back in the future because I think a lot of people have really come to like him even more now, and so he's probably more popular, so I will definitely expect him to return in future Dragon Ball installments. I would not be surprised if they even give him his own fight in the movie. They'll just find a way, even though it's the same focus movie, they'll find a way to shoehorn him in, I guess. That sounds bad, but hopefully they'll make it organic. I think I talked about most of what I wanted to talk about in terms of character development and what I think will go and happen in the future of the story. In general, I just want to really commend the storyboard and the direction of Megumi Ishitani, as I mentioned before. Every frame of this episode was purposefully crafted to elicit a strong emotion, hammer home the thematics of the arc, the character development, what this meant, and really evoke, a sense of satisfaction and, emotion in the audience. They wanted you to, feel the most out of this finale. Like Dragon Ball Super, as a whole, I'll just go right out and say it, it's been a pretty shallow affair, right? I mean, it didn't need to exist, obviously. It didn't really add a whole lot more in the bigger picture of Dragon Ball, because we already know the ending of Dragon Ball Z. We already kind of know that, Goku and his friends are going to keep fighting and evolving in power for the end of time. So we didn't learn any big revelations, but I think on certain respects, what they had to do and what they did with the characters, particularly the secondary characters, I think was pretty meaningful. I loved what they did with Trunks. I think they did some nice stuff with Krillin. I think that they did amazing stuff with 17 and Frieza that has made them even stronger characters than they were before. Some people might disagree with me in regards to Frieza, but I really think that Frieza has come out of this being a better character than he even was before. And, for me personally, and this doesn't have to necessarily do with the finale, but just as a whole, I was really appreciative of what they did with Master Roshi. Because Master Roshi has always been one of my favorite characters in Dragon Ball, ever since I was a kid and reading the series. And for me, Master Roshi is still the definitive mentor character because of how he treated his students. His training methods are so iconic, but also his lessons that he wanted to impart on them. That there is always going to be someone stronger, so you should never become comfortable, and get full of yourself. You should always be striving to improve. And you should, as a martial artist, never just fight for the sake of fighting. You should fight for the sake of others, for the sake of self-improvement. And if a mighty foe appears and is abusing their power to pick on the weak, you should defeat that foe with one big mighty blast. You should stand up to the bullies, to evil in the world. And Master Roshi was consistent in teaching that lesson, not only to his own students, but to Shinhan and the Tenkaichi Budokai, which was one of the most compelling relationships that they formed in the Budokai and King Piccolo arc that I really loved, was how Master Roshi helped Tenshinhan evolve from being this despicable, underhanded fighter who would brutalize his opponents, even outright kill people. And now he reformed Tenshinhan to becoming a more mature, more respectful fighter who realized how selfish he has been, makes atonements for the way he's been, like especially in the anime. It was just so powerful. And in the manga, Master Roshi, he makes a big sacrifice against King Piccolo, right? But it's very quick. He doesn't have much of a fight with King Piccolo in the manga, and ultimately he fails to seal him with the Mafuba because wind tips over the jar and he misses. So that's it. That's Master Roshi's last fight in the manga, and, you know, I just was not satisfied with that. I was always like, man, that's it for Master Roshi? He didn't even really get to fight King Piccolo. In the anime, of course, they really improved on that, because Master Roshi fights Piccolo before he uses the Mafuba, and just the dramatic tension in how the anime directs that scene makes the impact of Master Roshi missing the Mafuba feel so much more impactful and devastating than in the manga, where it just happens so quickly. It was disappointing. But even then, with the anime's version, while it was more of a fight, and I was a little more satisfied with that, I always felt a little bit of longing. I always felt like I wanted more from Master Roshi. I didn't feel like I really had a kind of closure with that character that I really wanted from one of my favorite Dragon Ball characters. And, you know, we get great moments of Master Roshi later on, you know, outside of fights that have some of that closure, I guess. Particularly at the end of the series, when Master Roshi is telling Tommy that everything began with one Dragon Ball, and that has led up to Goku becoming who he is, becoming the hero he is, and defeating the great evil that was Piccolo, and saving the day in the end of the Tenkaichi Budokai. And then Kami turns to Master Roshi and says, "You truly are a wise master. I can see that Goku has really become who he is today because of your influence." And Master Roshi is taken aback and tries to downplay him. He's like, "No, I only taught him the basics. I didn't have that much influence." But really, Master Roshi did, and that's what that moment really was emphasizing, is that Master Roshi just, was such an important, influential figure on Goku's life. But, of course, as the series went on, he was forgotten about, I don't think that, at least in the manga, he became a joke. Like, he still was always a character who had insightful things to say. He was aware of what was going on in the world. But, of course, he didn't fight, and he wasn't a major player anymore. And in the anime, oh my god, they kind of really treated Master Roshi with a lot of disrespect. They used him for comedy filler that was pretty bad, and yeah, it wasn't great. But finally, with Dragon Ball Super, I think I got that closure from Master Roshi that I wanted, that I could be satisfied with. Because here, in Dragon Ball Super, Master Roshi got to fight really strong opponents. He got to use the Mafuba and succeed using the Mafuba to seal an enemy and not have to die because of it, which was nice because it was established, from Piccolo using Mafuba that was not the condition that had to occur. That wasn't the outcome that necessarily resulted from using the Mafu, but if you were strong enough, you could survive using it a couple times. So I'm glad that Master Roshi was able to use it without having to die, and use it successfully. And, that fight with Ganos he had, where he, had a great speech about, living well and continuing to improve and fight for, the sake of others, and thanking Goku and Krillin for being his students, and that big Kamehameha did. And, what really sells it is Goku being so emotional about it, because, it looks like Master Roshi might be dying after he blasts out Ganos, right? So, Goku is in the middle of a jam fighting against Maji Kaio, but he, immediately, kind of gets out of that jam and rushes to Master Roshi's aid. And it's like the desperation in his voice as he's trying to resuscitate Roshi. That's the first time I've really seen Goku cry and feel so worried for someone in so long. And, emphasizing that Master Roshi was like a surrogate father, a father figure in Goku's life, and had such a profound impact on him in that episode. That really meant a lot to me. I'm glad they were finally able to have that kind of moment with those characters. Because, again, we didn't have that moment before in the manga and anime. Goku and Roshi didn't really talk about that. But here, in that episode, in 105, they had that. And even then, after that, in 107, even though Goku was not involved in that episode, those interactions he had with Vegeta, a character who doesn't have any history with him, but even Vegeta can respect Roshi's efforts and, gives him his praise, and Beerus gives him his praise. They really treated Roshi with such respect, and that really meant a lot to me, because I always wanted Roshi to get a proper send-off, a proper retirement for his character. And who knows if Master Roshi will be retired for good. They might continue to use him in fights. I mean, obviously, he's still the weakest member of the U7 crew. They respect him more than Yamcha to invite him to fight and stuff, but he's never going to be a strong character again. The days of him being one of the strongest in the series are long gone, but, even if we don't get more out of Master Roshi as a fighter in future Dragon Ball installments, I think that they really did justice to his character in Super. So, just for that alone, I think I love this arc so much. Because, not just with Roshi, but again, as I've been going on about 17 and Frieza, and all sorts of characters, they did so much with them. I mean, 18 got so much great stuff going for her. Gohan really came back in this arc in a good way. Honestly, I have mixed feelings about how they've handled Gohan as a whole, because honestly, I don't think he should have had to have this kind of revival of his character. He should have never have gotten soft and weak to begin with, but I'm glad that Gohan had such a strong showing. We got some great moments from him and Piccolo. Again, I just thought that they did justice to so much of Dragon Ball. And yeah, the Tournament of Power is basically fans. It's basically, hey, we know you love these characters. Hey, we know what you love about Dragon Ball and the most surface level stuff. We're gonna give it to you. But honestly, I think they did give us a little more than that. At least to me, I felt satisfied with the character development they gave us for all the supporting characters. And so, to tie this back into the ending of the episode, I just love that montage of seeing all the characters reunite, have that party for Bulla, welcoming her bird, and just all those images flashing by, the group comes back home, the Capsule Corp, and Bulma, with tears in her eyes, embraces Vegeta, and then Krillin and 18 go to pick up Marin, Goten and Trunks on 17's island, and then we have Roshi visiting Cord and Yajirobe as a nice callback to a scene where Roshi was trading with Cord earlier in the recruitment episodes, which I really liked. We also have Tenshinhan, repairing his dojo with Chaozu, and that one chick that I don't know if she'll stick around, but
she might as well. It'd be nice to have like a new generation of fighters start to crop up. I know that in some lore in the Dragon Ball Online game, Tenshinhan and Krillin started their own schools and they have their own students. So, maybe the Super can incorporate some of that. Or Dragon Ball future installments can incorporate some of that. Because that would be nice if we could start moving on to the next generation and kind of leave off from Goku and company. Because, I love Goku and company, but I would like to see Dragon Ball take a next generation kind of direction and commit to that. But yeah, and then of course we have the party, and everyone's there, and we have, even cameos from Jocko and Tights, and we have 17 on the boat. I wish we could have seen his family. I hope they show them someday, but, nice that he was on the boat. That he got to have his tour, then just, all this antics at that party where the characters are just having fun. Oh, and, Baby Pan flying around, bumping into Vegeta challenging Goku to a fight just impromptu because he's pissed off that Pan bumped into him. And then Bulma and Gigi sighing. It's just such a nice montage of moments that just... it will make you smile. Like, it's nice to see these characters hang out and be fun. Like, at the end of the day, Dragon Ball can't have, these huge dramatic stakes anymore. In fact, it couldn't have that ever since the very beginning when they were able to resurrect people from the dead. And the moment that it was established they could resurrect people from the dead, you were like, oh, well, there's no tension anymore because we know that dead characters come back to life. And then they keep breaking all the rules to try to keep tension in play. Like, oh no, King Piccolo destroyed the Dragon Balls. Guess we can't bring Master Roshi and Krillin back to life. Oh wait, no, Kami can just remake the Dragon Balls. Okay, that's fine then. Oh no, Piccolo is dead and so Kami is dead. Dragon Balls are gone. We can't provide for friends. Oh wait, their Dragon Balls are Namek and they don't have any limits to how many times you can bring someone back to life. So, we know that Dragon Ball can't have dramatic tension. That is nothing new, honestly. We know that from Dragon Ball Z. So you can't go into Dragon Ball Super, or at least you shouldn't really have those high expectations that they could have, like, oh my god, I'm afraid that this character's gonna die. Like, you can only be afraid of a character that's going to die if it's like a villain, because they don't have any obligation to bring a villain back to life. But with the heroes, of course they're going to bring them back to life. Of course they are. Like, there really is nothing that can truly be destroyed in Dragon Ball because of Dragon Balls. So that's fine. Like, why we watch Dragon Ball, or at least why I continue to watch Dragon Ball, why I like Super and the Tournament of Power so much, is the characters. It's just seeing these characters, seeing them hang out and have fun, and then seeing them have nice fights and show off what makes them so lovable and so great. That's what I like about Dragon Ball. That's what I think Dragon Ball Super succeeded at. I think that the finale really reminded me of that and emphasized that, and I really appreciated it. And I really, of course, love that. Of course, they have to have this huge thing where nice homage again to the Saiyan fight of Goku and Vegeta. They fight in the same rocky landscape. They do their poses just as Super Saiyan Blues now, and they clash with each other. It's just a cute ending. And I have had problems with how much Dragon Ball Super is quick to do all these homages to the original series that just oftentimes feels cheap because, like, oh no, Gohan is going to eliminate Dispo and ask Frieza to shoot him and Dispo out together. It's a clear homage to Goku and Piccolo fighting Raditz, except Gohan and Frieza don't really have that kind of relationship that Goku and Piccolo did. I don't really understand why we're doing this homage, but, they're hit and miss with the homages. Sometimes I think they're shallow and just for the sake of referencing them for nostalgia. But then you have times where that nostalgia bait is effective, or when having these references does feel meaningful. So, I kind of felt that case here with that final scene of Goku and Vegeta squaring off with those Saiyan Saga poses. And of course, even before that, we have Frieza saying, "Oh, I'm the Emperor of the Universe again, and I've got my crew back together." But of course, as I discussed previously, I don't think Frieza is going to truly go back to his same shtick as he used to. I'm pretty sure that they'll find something new for Frieza. Again, I'm really hoping that the direction they'll take Frieza is having him be the new God of Destruction, or at least become a God of Destruction in training, and become more of a anti-hero, anti-villain kind of figure. So, hoping for that. And yeah, just a lot of nice stuff. It makes me smile when the Zenos, fist bump Goku when he promises that they'll meet each other again. I just like that they have this callback to the last lines of Dragon Ball Z. There'll always be mighty foes showing up. So, but Goku and his friends will always keep fighting and saving the day. Thanks to the Dragon Balls, there'll always be peace. Peace will always be restored. And until the next time, this is a brief parting until we meet again. So, obviously, this was not a final type of finale. I saw that Grant from Human Horror Star tweeted this out earlier, that while the super finale, he liked it, he was a little disappointed that it didn't have that final kind of feeling that the Dragon Ball GT finale did. But of course, Dragon Ball GT's finale was meant to be final at that time. That's why there was that huge montage of, all the scenes from the series, super memorable scees, at the end of it. I'm pretty sure their idea was okay, this is going to be the last Dragon Ball anime. I guess we're going to move on now. But of course, as we know, Dragon Ball is back and bigger than ever, and they're just going to continue making it, and so the series is going to come back soon. And they know that because, the movie's coming out in December, and Gekigen no Kitaro is going to be airing for about a year, but I'm sure once it concludes, the next Dragon Ball series will come back, which will probably be a good time for it. So, yeah, they know that this isn't going to be the end, that there's going to be more in store. So for just a wrap-up to Dragon Ball Super as it was, and a wrap-up to the Tournament of Power, I thought this was a really strong finale. I enjoyed it a lot. It made me smile, beginning to end. And I'm going to miss watching the show every week, for the past 2.5 years, really just the past 2 years since the Universe 6 stuff. I've really loved watching Dragon Ball Super every week. It's been a joy. It was something that I would always watch and always smile. And I love that people would talk about it on Twitter and would get into it. And it really was special. It really brought me back to childhood when I was first getting into Dragon Ball and getting so excited about it. Those days when I would spend scouring Dragon Ball fan sites and the official Dragon Ball sites and just spend hours of my day just thinking about Dragon Ball. I don't think I was spending hours of my day thinking of Dragon Ball before Dragon Ball Super came back. I was thinking about Dragon Ball pretty frequently, but ever since Dragon Ball Super started, I've been thinking of Dragon Ball at least a little bit every day. It's always been on my mind. I've always been excited for what will happen next in Dragon Ball and speculating and getting more into the history of Dragon Balls as a production. The animators, the supervisors, the studios, all that history. And again, I really have to appreciate Anime AJ for exploring that stuff and really doing a service to the community by highlighting who does what and what's so awesome about what they do and all the production history behind these shows. That is just so valuable. I really love that. I hope one day I can talk with Anime AJ about the Dragon Ball's production history once I become a little more familiar with it myself. Because he's a cool dude, one of my favorite YouTubers, for sure. But in general, I love hearing from the Dragon Ball Super community, the YouTuber scene. You know, I like hearing the thoughts from people like Mozilla Wolpix and Geekdom 101 and Teching 101. All these guys who do Dragon Ball Super. Masako X was like the first guy who I was following who was doing weekly Dragon Ball Super reviews, you know, and I always loved his reviews of Super. I kind of fell out of, you know, review formats for a while when it came to Dragon Ball Super, but I still appreciate these content creators and what they've done in terms of building a community around Dragon Ball from YouTube, and all their speculation videos and their theory videos and just their fun what-if speculations and the discussions. I really like that community that's formed around Dragon Ball. And it's been a lot of fun to follow, and there are a lot of cool people in it that I'm really, really excited to see what they'll continue doing in the future, you know, during this Dragon Ball Super hiatus, like what content they'll make in the interim between this and the next series. Because they're all very talented people, at least the ones I follow, and I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, I just was very happy with Dragon Ball Super and how it's been received in the discussions I've been having with people about it. Sam Leach is not a YouTuber, but I definitely have enjoyed reading his reviews every week since they've been up on ANN. You know, he's one of my favorite writers on ANN, and I enjoy talking to him when we do have conversations on Twitter, or when we did talk about One Piece way back in July of last year. So, you know, hopefully I can talk with Sam about Dragon Ball more sometime, because I enjoy his thoughts on the series. I enjoy his perspective. There's a lot of people I would really love to talk about Dragon Ball who is in the Dragon Ball YouTube community and just the Dragon Ball Super community and like the Dragon Ball community as a whole. Like, I would love to talk to Kensenshu guys. Like, they're awesome. Chris Niozi is awesome. He's also an SVA alum, so we have like a connection there. That'd be cool. So, yeah, I don't know when any of that's going to happen. I mean, I do want to arrange a Dragon Ball Super series discussion podcast in the future. Hopefully I can do that. I can gather some people. I won't spoil who I'm thinking of right now, just in case they say no, and I look kind of dumb for saying that, I'm going to get this person, but no. They said no, they didn't want to do it. But, you know, hopefully I can get that arranged and recorded and released in the next couple months. A Dragon Ball Super series retrospective. I'll probably try and get that recorded sometime in April, give some people a little bit more time to digest Super. We don't have to talk about it right away, but, you know, sometime to digest Super, maybe record about it in April, and then in May, I can release that podcast. I think that would be fun. I really do want to talk about Dragon Ball Super with, like, a lot of different people, so I'll see who I can get on and see what kind of conversation we can have, because, you know, I've gone on for over an hour about this show, but it's Dragon Ball, so I can continue talking about it for days, and there's so much more about Dragon Ball Super that I didn't mention here that, you know, I could go into my thoughts on. So I'm really excited for that. And then in the interim, you know, the anime's over, but the manga's still going, so I'm gonna continue to read that, hopefully continue to write reviews of that, and put up my recordings of my scripts for those on YouTube. I don't know if I will be able to like edit like fully edited videos for them, but I do want to put up all my chapter reviews of Dragon Ball Super on YouTube as I continue to write them. So look out for those as they come out in the next couple of months. In the immediate future, hopefully my reviews of Chapter 33 and Chapter 34 will come out by the end of this week. This podcast has gone on so long that I don't know if this podcast will come out as soon as I had hoped it would, but hopefully it will. Man, Dragon Ball, talking about it makes me so happy, and it makes me excited, and my mind gets racing, and I get excited about it. Like, I wanted to just record this quickly, because it is late at night. It's like 5 a.m. right now, and I just wanted to make sure I could record this and get it out of the way so I didn't have to worry about it later, but here we are, a long time after I had originally intended to get my thoughts out on this series, so I should probably wrap it up because I probably should sleep for my own good so I can wake up early and work on a reasonable time tomorrow. So, this has been my thoughts on Dragon Ball Super episode 131, the finale, and a little bit of other stuff involving Dragon Ball Super 2. And until the next time I get to talk to you guys about Dragon Ball Super, until we meet again, sayonara!